Everyone, my name is Emily Doyle and my video presentation is about the genre disco and how the band the Bee Gees were an influence during that time as well. So what is disco? According to the Britannica Encyclopedia website, disco was also known as discotheque. It is a beat-driven style of popular music that was the preeminent form of dance music in the 1970s. The name was derived from the type of dance-oriented nightclub that first appeared in the 1960s. Which brings me to the next slide. Disco began around the late 1960s, early 1970s. The music developed mainly from soul music of the 1960s. It was considered a combination of simplified funk and sweet 70s soul music. It was largely associated with New York City gay nightclubs and was especially popular among African American and Latino gay nightclub population. With that, in the times of the 70s, many people were experimenting with their sexuality, and the gay rights movement had really taken off during this time. So disco was about uniting, living together in peace and harmony, and having fun. Disco became a symbolic call for gays to come out of the closet and dance with each other. And it allowed many people who went to these nightclubs and worked in them to show solidarity through music. The fashions of the 70s at these clubs were very extravagant and colorful. The clothing of dancers reflected a glittery opulence and a freewheeling attitudes towards sex. Many men were likely wearing gold chains, gold rings, shiny jewelry, patent leather platform shoes, tight Italian pants, unbuttoned shiny satin shirts like you see Elton John sporting the picture on the left. Women mainly wore low-cut, backless sequin gowns, spiked heels, long gold chains, and gold lame gloves, and a lot of the material were very sheer of the clothing, so not appropriate for the presentation, but just to give you an idea. So at the culture of these clubs, many people were involved in the use of drugs, especially cocaine, which was the primary choice of the 70s. At Studio 54, which is a popular disco nightclub in New York City, became the hotspot for celebrities, drugs, sex, and scandal. When asked about drug use at Studio 54, the former owner Steve Rubell said mainly the workers just kind of look the other way. He said people are taking so many pills that in those days that you didn't know if it was aspirin or something else, and it was just kind of an accepted thing at the disco scene. And again, Studio 54 was a place to be for, especially for celebrities. You had people like Andy Warhol, Elizabeth Taylor, Calvin Klein, Elton John, Mick Jagger, Liza Minnelli, and Michael Jackson, to name a few, were frequent patrons of the business. So the sound of disco is mainly characterized by a persistent beat backed by lush orchestration and smooth vocals. With the use of synthesizers, disco music was considered more rhythmically primitive because, unlike funk music, where the first beat of the 4 measure was given emphasis, disco stressed every beat with equal emphasis, and it created an insistent thumping bass line. Disco music minimized the importance of a lead guitar, at most included rhythm guitar and wah-wah effect that the sound guitars produce. Mainly the use of synthesizers or electric pianos, along with the soul sounds that developed from Philadelphia soul music. To even more distance itself from the sounds of rock, disco often reverberated vocals to sound unique. More songs were being labeled as disco were hitting the top charts, which led to the genre to gain more popularity especially with baby boomers. You have Never Can Say Goodbye by Gloria Gaynor began to sell very well. Donna Summer was named or acknowledged as the Queen of Disco, and she performed Love to Love You Baby. The Hustle by Van McCoy and Soul City Symphony, which inspired the line dance of the same name. Casey and the Sunshine Band produced hit singles such as Get Down Tonight, Shake Your Booty, and That's the Way I Like It. And then finally, you have the Village People, who created the ever so classic YMCA that sold millions during that time. Disco had proven to be a very popular industry. By 1979, it became a $5 billion industry. The Bee Gees, originally from Australia but moved to England to become musicians. The three main members of the band were three brothers, Barry, Robin, and Maurice Gibb. They got the name, it was shortened version for Brothers Gibb. They became one of the best-selling bands of all time, which I'll go over in a minute. They were very successful in the beginning of their careers. They adapted to the changing popular musical styles, but they generally maintained their unique style of high harmonies, elaborate melodies, and ornate orchestrations. More recently, they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1997 and won a Grammy Award for Lifetime Achievement in 2015. The Bee Gees' musical album Saturday Night Fever became their biggest success by far. It was partially the reason that disco became so popularized in the 1970s. The soundtrack, along with the movie, made disco a national sensation. The movie was developed from the soundtrack portrayed by John Travolta as a young, poor Italian teenager who transforms into a disco superstar. It pretty much showed disco as the new hip trend that people should be enjoying at that time. The soundtrack, which features the Bee Gees' hit Stayin' Alive, which most everybody has heard at some point or another, and that album sold over 30 million copies worldwide at the time. Now, because this album was so successful, the Bee Gees, this was the height of their careers. Unfortunately, they never really made anything after this that was as successful. So this Saturday Night Fever was definitely the peak of their music careers. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And next page is the works cited. And thanks.